gold. He could be too far. No, he's digging. Oh, what a catch.
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Darren Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chapter.
Canada just became the world champions.
Canada, the rest of the world, how are you doing? You're listening to the Huckin Eh podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo Wan from Toronto, Ontario.
And I'm Danie Proby, and I'm from Vancouver, BC, and we are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate.
Before we get started, Danie, let's plug all the socials as per usual. So if you want to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, you can do that at Hucking_A. You can check us out on Facebook at Huckin Eh Podcast. You can email us at huckinga@ultiworld.com. And then last but not least, we're basically YouTubers now. So you gotta like the video, you gotta comment, and make sure you subscribe to Ultiworld as well. Helps out the so-called YouTube algorithm so people can find the videos, which is great. And a lot of you have been watching the videos, so we really appreciate that. We've been blown away by the support for the podcast. So, Danny, that's pretty much the start of that. But we got some things to talk about today. And you kind of did something really cool. You started up a group chat. So why don't we talk about that first?
It's so exciting. So now that we're influencers, we started, we're influencers. Come on. We gotta pretend. Fake it till you make it.
We'll go with it.
We had followed, because we did episodes kind of highlighting all the teams for the first two episodes, we had a lot of them on Instagram. So we decided the fastest way to get updates from them is not email. And so we created a West group chat and an East group chat because we couldn't fit everyone together anyway. It's been pretty fun. It's nice to kind of see all these different teams all in one space. And I've been getting the feedback that it's been kind of motivating for people to hear what everyone's been up to. But I'm like, I know it's going to get more, what's a lighter way to say toxic? Like a friendly way to say toxic?
No clue, but I think you're thinking it's going to be chaos eventually.
It might be a bit chaotic, but for now it was really funny because like it's East
cordial.
Chat, sure, it's definitely cordial, but okay. So the East chat was a bit more lively and they're posting more stuff and I wanted to get more out of the West. So I informed them that the East chat was more lively and then they informed me that fits because the East is usually all talk. So there you have it.
And Danny, I'm just wondering right now, like in your personal life, right? Like, you know, outside of quote unquote influencer life here, who are you in the group chats? Because I'll admit, people that have been in my captain's chat, for example, they know to expect lots of messages, lots of GIFs. That's how I call it. GIF, okay. GIF, you know, lots of those in the group chat. So I'm all about that. Won't be doing it as much in this kind of more quote unquote professional group chat, let's just say. But what are you like in your group chats?
Yeah, for those of you that know me well, I have to bring this up a lot because it does impact kind of like how I work and how I operate. But I have ADHD. So kind of like when I start chatting, if I have an idea, it needs to come out of me immediately. So I'll be like a tornado of messages and then I'll go dark for a while. So I'm that person in the group chat.
Yeah, but at least you're not the full-time lurker is what it sounds like. Because you know some people, they're in the group chat, but you never hear from them. You don't even realize they're in the group chat because they never respond.
Yeah, they probably have like it set to mute and you got to at them to bring their attention. Hey, we want your input. We'll at you. So I'm definitely not the silent lurker. So Theo, like you're not a lurker either. It's kind of nice spending this time together, getting to know each other because we've actually never met in person, which I think is interesting.
That is true.
So I want to get to know you a little bit better. So our theme today, we're going to be talking about 4-on-4 Ultimate, which is something that I have very little experience in. Can you tell me like a 4-on-4 story or a memory or something that brings you joy, or maybe not even joy, just something that sticks out?
Yeah, for me, 4v4 is, you know, pretty big in Ontario. I've played in the university circuit. I've done some, you know, league stuff and things like that. And one memory that sticks out is actually not a university tournament. It was just a like random tournament in Toronto, and got to the fields pretty early and realized the dome wasn't open. Then eventually the dome opened up, but it was like super cold outside, dead of winter. We get inside the dome and we realize like it's super cold in here. Like for those who are at this tournament in Toronto, I believe it was Lamport Stadium, they'll remember this event because we're trying to play in the dead of winter 4v4, indoors, you get the heat, it's not bad. Actually gets too hot sometimes. But in this case, there was no heat. So basically people are like in jackets warming up. People got the mittens on. And so it's like playing 4v4, but the disc is obviously a lot harder because it's so cold. And the person who was working for the city was basically potentially going to say like, this tournament can't run because like there's no, the heat running and like something could happen with the dome and all this kind of stuff. So basically we ended up playing, it started to heat up, but I'm pretty sure that was just because of like people's bodies and like people running around, not the actual like heat in the building. So for me, it wasn't like the most memorable term in terms of results. I couldn't even remember how my team did, but I just remember playing 4v4 in like the coldest environment possible in the dead of winter, but like in a dome. It was quite interesting and yeah, not something I want to do again. I want to play fours again, but not in a cold dome. But Danie, we were talking about this off air, like, leading up into this episode, and you know really nothing about 4v4 because it's not that big in the West Coast. So
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting thing too, right?
Yeah, like in the colder weather, we're still playing outside. And so we're playing, we'll fit 4 fields going across the width of a soccer pitch. So we have quite a bit more space than what I see in these 4-on-4 games. So we play a lot of 5-on-5, but it's not like a series or a thing. Like it's league and it can be quite high level or whatever, but it's not like, it's just a totally different vibe. So the closest thing I can relate to 4v4 is Ultimate. And it's not that popular with young people in BC, but there's this like core group of Frisbee icons, open players. They're legends. Are you going
to drop some names right now?
Lugsden's there sometimes. Hey. We got Jeff Bell. Everyone knows Jeff Bell. He's not only a dope photographer, but he's also a legendary Frisbee player. We got Doyle's heading out there lots of times. Like, I can't even name all of them. And it's a bunch of like gristly men who grew up in like the glory days of Furious George and Team Canada. Like they're in all those like old, like Alti Village videos and even from like 2008 and stuff. Anyways, it's epic. And sometimes they need subs and Ari will bring me along and it's so fun. So it's like a bunch of these like dads that I don't know, like if they train or not, but when they go to Ultimate, it's so serious. It's their thing that they do and they're so good at it. It's like a completely different sport. And I remember there was this time where I was in the kind of hoop area trying to score. And oh my gosh, who was it? Oh, it was Kirk Savage. He was like straight shoulder bumping me and like shoving me out of the circle. And I was like, I'm one of the bros. This is so exciting. So
hey, that's good stuff, right?
I'm so happy that they invited me. It's very intimidating, but it's fun. So I could see when I was watching 4-on-4 that there's a lot of skills that Ultimate players would be really good at in 4v4. It's quick decisions. It's kind of junky throws. So I'm very, very excited to hear this episode that we're doing today to learn more about it.
Yeah, I mean, Golti's not big out in the East, at least where I've never played it. Like, even just the equipment, it sounds like you need the equipment going on.
Yeah.
Whereas 4v4, you just need the cones, right? So maybe a little bit easier, but yeah, I'm excited to hear what's going on. But before we do that, Danie, we got to get to the news, right?
Yeah, I think we should head to the news.
We now have breaking news.
Hey everybody, welcome to your news section. We actually have stuff to report this time. So now that we have group chats going on and more teams and more provinces are opening up or closing down, there's actually some stuff to update. So first update from my hood is that BC on last Tuesday announced that we're allowed to scrimmage up to 50 people. Are allowed to be at a practice, still no spectators, and masks are optional. From what I've seen, most teams are doing like a bunch of surveys to see if people are comfortable, whether they want to wait until everyone's vaccinated or not. So that's kind of what the plan is for BC so far. And when I was doing the practice of traffic, we were maskless, but we didn't scrimmage. When I'm doing the women's team that I'm coaching, they are scrimmaging, but they're wearing masks. So every team's kind of doing their own thing about it. Along with that announcement, Traffic is also potentially going to be doing their actual tryouts, maybe even up to a month earlier than they originally intended. So it's pretty good news. It's exciting to think that teams are like moving up their timelines. Like that was not really what I was expecting too much. So, but also another BC thing. So I'm sure you all know Nathan, Big Nate. Does all the awesome epic videos and photos, and Ultimate. He's very famous. So he's from a hood. He's from this area, and he'd posted something on his stories, and I think this is kind of interesting. Did you see it, Theo?
Yeah, I definitely did. We were trying to figure out, who be taking some content, but no, it's like, it was interesting hearing that. I've had Nate on my own podcast, so I consider him, a friend now, and understand kind of what it's like to be a content creator. So Daniel, I'll let you kind of share what was happening, and maybe people can, if they're interested, they can, talk to Nate if they want to learn more. So. Yeah,
so he posted something on his story, and you and I quickly messaged each other like, oh my gosh, is he talking about us? But like, he knows us well enough, he would have told us. But it did make us reflect a little bit about all the photos and videos we were collecting from teams. We don't necessarily know whether those teams were asking permission or whatever. And it's just a good kind of general PSA for everyone that these creators are out here, these photographers are out here grinding, and it's just like not cool to not only like take their stuff, but also not credit them. So it's just something that we all as a community can be a little bit better at supporting those people. So anyways, he posted on his stories, and he basically rallied the troops, and everyone went on TikTok and started commenting on this person's stuff. And I think a lot of the videos got removed or taken down. And so that peer pressure definitely worked. It's kind of a cute little community story. So yeah.
And Danny, I know we're also not here saying that we're perfect in that. We know, like you said, we were in reflection looking upon that. I know one of my friends, Daniel, Eye, however you want to say it, he took a lot of the pictures for the Ontario team, so I want to give him a shout out as well. So it's always about being better, and that's something we're focusing on here. And we're going to move on, keep it going with some news. We're going to move a little bit more east here to Alberta. So AFC, like I said before, my favorite team name right now. Got to give them some love. So, like other teams, they're playing disc golf, but they sent out an interest survey, and they're potentially going to play as early as June 10th. So kind of maybe moving up their timeline as well. So it sounds like certain provinces, they're able to do that. But I know you're going to talk about Manitoba, and that's a different story.
Yeah, it seems like Manitoba is, from what they're saying, is still a ways away. Which is unfortunate. And I did actually forget to mention in the Vancouver stuff that I think the Furious is starting up this week, and Red Flag, from what I know, is doing like a fun social, I think next week. So a lot of stuff is happening, not just on the women's side. And I think the Gulls and boys on the island has also been meeting up and starting to do drills. So it's very exciting. So yeah, Manitoba is a ways away from opening. So thoughts are with them to hopefully get their numbers down or more vaccinated or whatever it takes to get people back on the field safely. So Saskatchewan, on the other hand, is fully open as of when we're recording this, and they don't really know exactly what that means, but I would expect that to look like outdoor sports are fine again. So good for them.
Yeah, let's go. And moving to, my hood, Ontario, we talked a lot about, a couple of teams that were doing some really cool initiatives last week, and one of them being Fox. We talked about building women's ultimate. So they're working with PPF, and they're doing a fitness challenge for June. I know some members of PPF, and they had started the Penny Club. They were kind of getting applications for that, along with Sixers was, putting out a tryout form as well. So teams, even in Ontario, though we can't fully practice, teams are moving. Like, they're trying to get stuff going. And like you said, Danny, that's pretty exciting stuff. Moving, with other women's teams, I'm just looking at the news here. Stella, they're using an app that I love, Strava. So I like to, if you're a runner, you like to boast about your runs or your bike rides on Strava. So the fact that they're doing that's pretty cool. Keeps people motivated, keeps people wanting to see what their numbers are compared to other people. So that's good stuff. And yeah, I mean, Ottawa and the rest of Ontario, we're hoping to scrimmage as soon as we can. I know at least they wrote in hoping early July. So we'll see what happens with Ontario, what Doug Ford and the government decides to do. And then, won't get any more political than that. So there you go. Keep this, we'll keep it going here. So my old alma mater, Maverick, rocking the jersey right now from Be Ultimate. And so they're putting together a fitness program, distance drills. We did that last year as well, where we had about 10 people out at just a park nearby, and we just do socially distanced drills, and that was fun just to get people out. Sounds like they're doing that again, and there's also a secret. I don't know if it's secret, but there's like a group chat. I'm not in it, but open captains are kind of talking in Ontario about potentially what could happen, and we're going to talk a little bit more about something overall in Canada as well. And then along with that, Stella's trying to do socially distanced practices, 5 people in a pod, which is what you're allowed in Ontario. So we're seeing things moving, especially in Ottawa, because another team, we actually didn't include them in our preview, but Rosie, a Masters team and Grandmasters, I guess, Danny, they're trying to get stuff going, right? They're trying to get things moving and grooving and potentially doing some socially isolated things as well, right?
Yeah, they're doing, it look like even potentially up to 2 practices a week starting up soon. I love their logo. So if you don't follow Rosie on the social media, you should do so. And as you mentioned, Canada is maybe potentially doing some stuff. So I'm excited to talk about that, but we're going to go even farther east to Salty. So they sent in some regrets that after they did their audio clip for our preview, that like pretty much right away they shut down. So they said it was ironic that we've been open and we were bragging about being able to play and then immediately shut down. So yeah, they've been practicing or they will be practicing probably around mid-June, and they're hoping to be able to play games mid-July. They don't have like a lot of high hopes for kind of like nationwide or outside of the Maritimes, Atlantic games, but hopefully they can. That'd be great. And speaking of Canada, so a lot of the top teams, especially the ones that are thinking about playing in the USAU series in the fall, are looking to kind of get some higher level competition. And just with the geographic nature of Canada, with everything being super spread out, some of the top teams in both the open and women's division are talking about doing sort of a Canada Cup. So I know like Furious and Goat and Strike, I think those types of teams are talking. And I heard at the last Traffic pod practice that some of the women's teams are talking about doing something too. So even if there isn't a CUCs, there's still going to be some sort of high level Canadian competition potentially in August if everything goes really well. So yeah.
And Danny, you might be in there playing, but we got to be there sort of like throwing some live updates for the fans out there is what you're saying.
If it's Canadian Ultimate, we will be there.
There you go. And so that actually wraps up our news segment. But last thing before we wrap it up, if we didn't feature your team in the first 2 episodes, your club team, or this episode, and you want to be featured, hey, send us a DM on Instagram. We got a message earlier this week from a team on Facebook. So definitely do that. And we'll try to get your team featured, right? We're trying to build up Canadian Ultimate and get more teams known. And so please do that if you're watching or listening and you didn't hear your team and want to do that. So you can reach us there.
Yeah. Now, Theo, we have an awesome sponsor for this episode, right?
Oh, I like the segue. Let's go. Yeah, we're going to take a break, but hear from our sponsor, Be Ultimate. Let's go. This episode is brought to you by Be Ultimate Apparel. Based out of Vancouver, BC, Be Ultimate is climate neutral certified and designs products that are built to perform. I personally love my 2 sun hoodies from them, and I rock them wherever I go. If you want to learn more about Be Ultimate, or if you're a club team captain and want to take advantage of their no strings attached offer for a free jersey, head over to beultimate.ca or visit the link in the show description.
This is Jamie Millage from Hound and Team Canada. Bad decision? Looking off that reset to throw the high stall hammer. Good decision. Listening to the Huckin Eh podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, we're back. It's not just Danny and I. We got a whole panel of guests. We're really excited. Danny, this is the first time we had a full panel. So this is like groundbreaking stuff for our podcast. 3rd episode in, and we got a huge panel. So we're talking 4v4. For those out on the West Coast, like Danny, you may have never even heard of this thing. But in the East, we know it's a big deal, especially with the C4UC circuit, and it's really big in the province of Quebec as well. So we're really excited to have each guest. So we're going to have each guest introduce themselves, tell us a little bit more about them, where they've played, both with club and then in the 4 scene as well. So we're going to start off with our first guest from Alberta in Sarah Norton.
Hi guys, I'm Sarah and I'm out in Edmonton, Alberta, and I play with Flurry, the women's competitive team here in Edmonton. And for 4-on-4, I play with Nomo, and they're a team that's kind of a mixture of Edmonton and Calgary players in our province here.
Sweet. And we'll go out east over to Ontario, my home province, and Steph Hall there.
I'm Steph Hall. Thanks for having me. In terms of club teams, I play with PPF. I've played with them for the last 3 years. So they're based out of Cambridge, women's ultimate team out of Cambridge. And then for 4v4, I'm one of the captains on Melt along with Lincoln Molly. So we've had 2 seasons in the 4-on-4 circuit so far, and we were kind of lucky enough to go to C4UC in 2019.
Let's go. And now into Quebec. I hope I get the name right. Jean-Levy Champagne. I hope I nailed it, but welcome all the way from Quebec there.
Thanks, Theo. Jean-Levy Champagne from Montreal. I've played Magma, Mephisto, Odyssey, and now I'm playing Ensom. I've been playing for Ninjax for 12 years now, so great season, fun game. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and we'll end our introduction all the way in the East Coast there in Nova Scotia. So Gavin Gray, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm Gavin Gray from Halifax, Nova Scotia. During the summers, I captain and play for the mixed team Anchor. And during the 4th season, I captain and play for Brunch Money. Been playing Ultimate since 2007, touring since 2010. Been playing 4 since 2011, and I've been to every C4UC except for 2018.
So we got a real veteran in the house, Danie, is what we're hearing. Like a lot of veterans, actually, that have played C4UC and lots of 4v4, unlike yourself.
I'm very grateful because I've heard lore of this C4UC. I've seen it posted on Ultimate Canada. I've seen it on social media, and I've always just kind of like brushed it off as this like weird thing that people from the East do. But we've got Alberta represented here, so it's just Vancouver that doesn't know what's up. So I'm very grateful to have all of you teach me. So Gavin, I've heard you're an expert. You're the guru. So can you explain to me, like I'm 5, what 4v4 is? Why is it special? What makes it different? Why do people from Vancouver need to get on this bus?
Sure, I'll do my best. So 4 rules are generally referred to as Quebec or FQU rules and sometimes speed point rules. The rules are based off of the 2021 or 2020-2021 official rules of Ultimate, or what we're all used to, and then with the following exceptions. The field is 18 meters wide by 30 meters long, which includes a pair of end zones that are 3 meters deep. Games are played to a hard cap and can be anywhere from 45 to 55 minutes, depending on the tournament, but most of the time it's 50 minutes. Once the hard cap goes, the game is over unless the game's tied, and in that case, you just finish the points. So unlike outdoors, there's no point cap on games. Halftime occurs at the midpoint of the game based on time, or at some tournaments, it's after one team scores 9 points. And at this point, this is where we would switch sides. There's only 2 pulls in the game, one at the start and one at half. And each team obviously only pulls once. And this is where things get a little tricky or different. But once a point's scored, the disc is left in the end zone at the spot where it was caught. And the disc is put in the play at that exact spot by the opposing team once the marker acknowledges that. And the team that scored is now on defense. So between points, there's a maximum of 30 seconds, and the next point begins after that 30-second period or after both teams have acknowledged and put the disc back into play. So a lot more faster paced, back and forth, quick. Players can only sub between points or during an injury timeout. And the ratio for play in mixed, which is the most common format, is 2-2. Originally, it was 2-2 or 3-1, male-female, with offense deciding. However, most tournaments and most leagues now have made that switch to permanent 2-2 all the time. So that sums it up. There's a lot of little other smaller rules, but we don't need to get into those. But that's the gist of 4s.
No, that's really helpful. The thing that stood out to me the most is the field size, and I'll maybe talk about this later. But I'd be curious to hear from most of you, if not all of you, what do you personally like playing about 4-on-4? Let's go maybe Stephanie first.
Sure. I think my favorite thing about 4-on-4 is that, to me, it's really a chess match. It just feels a lot more strategic than sevens. And mostly that is because of the field size that Gavin was talking about and the number of players on the field. So, everyone has a really important part to play in the success of the team. And so that's just something that I really enjoy.
And maybe Sarah?
I think my favorite part about it, it's pretty fast paced, which is just, it's really fun. Like sometimes you get to half in a game in like 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you have like another 40 minutes to play and the score just keeps on going up. But it's really fun. And kind of along with what Stephanie says, you have to be very I guess just always cognizant of where you are on the field. Sometimes on the sevens field, on a full field, you can kind of just like fade into the background and get out of the way. There's no getting out of the way in 4-on-4, so your team has to be fully clicking together as you're moving. Otherwise, you're just making a big cluster of stuff happen out there. So, yeah, you got to be pretty strategic about it.
I can imagine it. I've seen some of the videos, and I see people trying to hide. It doesn't work. Jean-Levy?
Yeah, Stephanie and Sarah said it. The fast pace of the game, you have to clear the space all the time because the end zone is so small. So you have to run up the line all the time, clear, go on the other side for a swing. So the fast pace of the game, it's like basketball on a basketball court. So I like the fast pace for sure.
Sweet. Gavin, last but not least.
Sure, I'll echo that. The pace and the speed of the game is so much more fun, and the creativity that comes with that, the cheeky throws, the blades, the hammers, the scoobers, all that. And then just because it is fours, there's less people. There's only 12 people, mostly max on a team, so you feel like you have more control of the game because you're more involved. I know I've been on teams before where I felt like I had less control in the game because maybe I wasn't playing as much or other players affected the outcome. Whereas fours, I feel like my hands are in it. We're really in control of the game. And then the other part, like everyone else also said, like you have to be highly skilled and have a high LTIQ to really succeed because you can't hide, or the other team will pick up very quickly if you have terrible footwork on defense and they will pick on you relentlessly. Or if that person can't throw, we're going to isolate that and find it quicker. So I love that part about it as well.
I feel like this is like something I would personally really enjoy playing. So maybe I'll head out there sometime.
Or you're going to bring it to Vancouver too.
I mean, we play 5-on-5, and it's just like regular turf. Like league, it's not like a thing, that people train for. I could see myself getting into it, but definitely curious with the differences of how the 4-on-4 scene in all of your different locations, because I think what's awesome about this panel is that you're from a wide variety of contexts. So I don't know if we want to hit up that same order, just like a brief description about like how popular it is, like how many, like if you could guess the percentage of Ultimate players in your city, how many of them play fours, something like that, or the uptake of it in general. So we can start with Steph.
Sure. Man, the percentage, that's tough for me. I certainly see it growing every year, right? Like I play mostly as part of the Hamilton Ultimate Club. And so typically we'd have in a fall and winter season, all 12 teams sign up, like it sells out before, the due date. So it's certainly gaining in popularity. And anyone who was maybe an intermediate team before is, stepping up into a more experienced team. So it's really nice to see in the Hamilton community, maybe a novice team moving up and spending the time to really improve their skills. And that just makes it fun for everyone because you kind of get that competitive atmosphere every single year as the scene kind of grows. So that's been great to see in Hamilton.
Nice. Sarah?
I think, again, for me, it's kind of hard to put a percentage on it as well, but I would say there's a pretty high commitment level here. Mostly we're in Edmonton specifically, we're farther north than Calgary, obviously, but for both of us, playing outside or in larger scale in the wintertime is just not an option. So there's a pretty big uptake just in terms of it being the only option for competitive players in the winter, because I mean, it's 25 degrees here today, but it was only a few weeks ago when we had snow. So we really have to commit to being inside for about 6 or 7 months of the year. And 4-on-4 has just been the most effective use of space and the best way to get as many players involved as possible. So of the competitive Ultimate community here, I would say it would be above 75% that play 4-on-4 in the winter.
Wow. That's a lot.
Jean-Levy? It's a small community though, so sorry. It's not like it's a huge group like out in Toronto or
That's
something
fair.
like that. The Edmonton Ultimate community is a little bit more condensed.
Yeah.
In Quebec, I don't play League in Montreal. There's League, and it has grown. Before 5-5 was really big in Montreal. Then, because of the 4-on-4 circuit that has been created in 2008 in Quebec, we've got all together and we've learned how other cities were functioning. So Quebec, Sherbrooke, and we've learned they were playing 4-on-4. So we brought that onto the League in Montreal. I don't personally play League. I play tournaments, which there's one tournament in Quebec City every year, the Mars Attack, where there's more than 100 teams every year that participate in the tournament. It's a crazy, happy place of people, of beautiful people playing Ultimate all together that you see at the parties during the tournament. So, Danie, if you come to a tournament, it has to be the Mars Attack in Quebec. No other choice.
I will be an honorary pickup for any of your teams. I will play for sure. All right, Gavin.
So Forest is very popular in the Maritimes and in Nova Scotia in particular, although it's dipped a little in the last few years, but I think that's more just because our leagues are offering 6s indoors now instead of just the 4s, which was the only option. And another part too, our biggest Forest tournament, C4P, used to be in January and it got moved to the fall due to some scheduling conflicts, so that hasn't helped a lot. But that's a 20 to 24 team tournament and probably the largest tournament in the Maritimes. We also have a women's tournament, Forest women's tournament called Chicken Run, which is run every December, I believe, which has been running since 2012. It's a highly successful tournament. One of the things I think we, as the Maritimes, are the most proud of is that we do have that women's Forest tournament. And then there's also another smaller tournament in the Pictou County area called Surf and Turf, which has been gaining more and more steam in the last few years. And there's a bunch of tournaments in New Brunswick. And we've always talk about maybe trying to venture up to Quebec for a couple of the tournaments, but it's like just a bit too far. And we want to go because we want to test ourselves, but it's at that stage and we can't really participate in the tour. So that's the other part that makes it a little difficult than to pop over and see how we do against them.
You all paint a very nice picture. I'm just thinking of like tournaments and like partying and hanging out with people. Just like, yeah, very nostalgic. Okay, I have a magic wand and now you have a magic wand and you could wave it and change one rule of 4-on-4 or adapt it, or it doesn't need to like necessarily leave or be added. What would it be? And I don't know if it worked to keep going around in the same order because we could start with Steph again, or if you don't. Yeah. Okay, sweet. We'll keep it organized.
This is really tough for me. I don't know if I'd change too much about it. I like when Gavin's going over the rules as a refresher, because obviously in Ontario we haven't been able to play for some time now, so I'm missing it a lot. But I like the fact that you're subbing after the point and the disc stays in the end zone where the point was caught. That's a really nice piece for me for 4s. I don't. It's a less interesting answer, but I don't know if I'd change too much. I like how unique it is from 7s, so I think I'd keep it exactly the way it is. It's perfect just the way it is.
That's okay. That's allowed.
Yeah, that's good. That's okay answer. We'll take it.
For me, I guess the only rule that I think has ever caused some debate in games when I've been a part of them is just when timeouts can be called, because it's a timed game and you get down to the end and say a team is up by 1 point and you hear the horn that you're in the last minute of the game or something, somebody can call a timeout and try and run down that clock. And so I've been overhearing discussions between captains a few times about if we're going to be allowed to call timeouts in that last 3 minutes of the game or so, just to kind of let the game play out as it will, rather than trying to kill the clock in a strategic way. The rules do allow it, but it does kind of take away from some of the fun of the end of those games.
So
that's very relatable.
Yeah, Sarah, we call it turnover if you call it timeout in the last 5 minutes in Quebec. It's a turn, automatic. So we're not allowed to do that. I think they changed the rule in USAU. Gavin, can you confirm that it's not a turn anymore? So it's not a turnover anymore in the 4v4 in Quebec. If it's a rule in USAU, is it?
I'm not sure about USAU, but for C4UC, it's you can call a timeout up until the end, and it has been used, as Sarah was talking about. So, definitely been used in a Brunch Money versus Nomo game. I think to kill some clock. So that's why I'm laughing, because it has come up before.
So that's the rule change.
It was allowed.
To change then. It's the NFP buzzer. If you're losing 14-13 and there's 2 minutes left, and then 14-12 and there's 30 seconds left, the time you go and switch the players on the field and pick up the disc, this has to be stop time. The games needs to end with a point. That's the only rule that I would put. It's tough for tournaments because there's a game 5 minutes after that, so you need to run very fast. The universe point cannot go that long, but that's the rule. The buzzer at the end, it needs to end with a point if it's short tie or something like that. That's the rule I would change.
Interesting.
For me, this might get controversial, but moving to a continuous format to make it even more fast-paced and exciting. So after points scored, the opposite team can just pick it up. And the way we play here is you can bring it up to the line, and tap it in and then go, or you can bring it to the middle and tap it in and go, and you don't have to wait for defense to check it in. I love it because it's faster. It's so much more exciting, even on top of what Forza already is. Add up the speed even more. You can catch the other team subbing on defense, which is always great. And it eliminates some of that gamesmanship that can sometimes happen by teams in between points, where they're intentionally dragging their feet, taking a little long, or they're yelling at you to hurry up when you are using the right amount of time. So it eliminates some of that stuff. And it's just go, 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 go the whole time. So that's what I would change.
So, question?
Yeah, generally when we do 5-on-5 in Vancouver, it's sub on the fly, and I like how fast it is. Sorry, yes, Jean-Levy.
That's my question. So you play 4-on-4 subs on the fly? Oh, yep. Okay. Crazy. Interesting.
Yeah. So you just have there's a sub zone at half that each team has room for, and you can just sub in and out, and it adds a whole other layer of strategy too. So it's pretty interesting.
And yelling from your own team, you're stop subbing on defense.
Yes.
It's getting roasted.
As you're running off and you're saying, I know it's a bad sub, but
guilty.
Those people, yeah.
That's totally true. Okay, last question from me, because this is it's been really good for me to kind of get a lot of context from y'all. But if you were either playing in a game or maybe watching a game and you could relive it or replay it, what game would that be? What was the most epic game you've seen or played in for 4v4? What year? Who was it against?
So I think for me, it would have to be the 0-4 UC in 2019. So that was Melt's first chance at kick at the can, if you will. And we actually went 4-0 on Saturday, which was a really great accomplishment for us. As a new team entering the circuit, we weren't really sure, how we do, and we were able to stay focused and locked in all day, which isn't always possible with the kind of different breaks that you might have during the day. You might have a bye, and your legs aren't really in it. So that to me was really an accomplishment that we were able to kind of stay focused, and we actually ended up beating Toon Squad, which to me was a huge accomplishment on the day. So to me, that kind of stands out as one of my favorite memories. Outside of that, it'd be hanging out with everyone at Airbnbs and whatnot when we're traveling to Ottawa or traveling to Montreal for various tournaments. So it's a great kind of group of people to be around. So it's a lot of fun.
For Nomo, we've had a couple of bronze medal game wins, the last few C4 UCs that both came down to the wire. And I believe, maybe my memory is incorrect, but I believe both of them were against Tetraphobia. So it's been kind of a nice little rivalry back and forth there. I think both years we lost to Brunch Money in the semifinals as well. So it's kind of been a little bit of a script that we hope someday to be able to change up a bit. But it's always just fun when any game comes down to the wire like that.
For me, it would be 2018, the final tournament, the Mars Attack. We went 0-3 during the tournament. The top 8 is really strong, so there's a strong competition. So our last game of the day on the Saturday, we played 1 versus 16. We were 16. We won on Universe, and then we won all the games on Sunday on Universe. And then 16 seconds from the end, Kevin Quinlan got injured. They had the disc in the end. They could score for a Universe point. So we stopped the clock because that rule sucks at some point. So we stopped that clock, and we because the crowd was chanting, they wanted something more. And then they threw for a score. He didn't land in the end zone. But because the crowd was chanting "Universe, Universe," we made the goal. We let them take the goal, and we played another point at Universe, and we won. So it was epic win, and the crowd was so fun. So that was my nice memory.
And you'd think the obvious answer would be the winning gold in 2017, but honestly, it was the semifinals that year against Toon Squad that really stands out for me. And sorry, this isn't piling on Toon Squad and talking about them, but
I know a bunch of people on that team, so it's kind of funny.
It was just, we played them the year before for the third place game, and so this was another game. We knew each other very well, and it was just back and forth the whole game. Playing against a team that we really respected, and it was just big plays, both teams, and everybody putting it all on the line to try and get to that final. And it was just a few marathon points, and that was where our team's hard work during the off season really started to show, all the work we put into the gym and practice. And I just remember coming off on a point, and we were walking off, but then their players were walking off and collapsing onto the ground and laying on the ground, gasping for air, while our players are just still rolling. And then it was in that moment where I was like, yes, like this is where all this hard work we've been putting in when no one's looking, no one's watching, is paid off. And from that moment on, we took off for the rest of the game. It was still hard fought, but I went more confident into that final after playing that game and just seeing that moment. And it just will forever live with me on one of those, like, this is why that hard work pays off. So, yeah.
Wow. It's definitely feeling yearning for Frisbee. It's like like listening to people's like epic wins and like all that stuff. Like I've been in so many semifinals where the semifinal felt more epic than say the final. So yeah, that resonates for me. Thank you all for educating me. I feel like I know everything and I'm a believer. But Theo, you were already a believer, so you've got more like in-depth questions for everybody than I could muster up. So
that's okay. Honestly, the whole practice thing too is kind of interesting as well, because I feel like there are teams that do, like, even in university, the university circuit, I know there are teams that like practice and really put in the work for a 4v4. And so that's like pretty sweet deal. And so we'll start off in Quebec because, at least from my knowledge, Quebec has its own circuit, right? Jean-Levy, is that correct? Like a whole tour?
Yes. Yeah. Created in 2000.
And so, okay, so what kind of went into that? Like, what was the thinking behind starting a whole tour in the province for 4v4 specifically?
Well, I think 4v4 started in Munston, New Brunswick. We play 4v4 because of necessity. That we don't have indoor space or outdoor space during the winter to play, so that's when we started playing. Then the Quebec Federation became a PSO during those years, and Sébastien Labbé created a circuit. He's a very special mind, Sébastien Labbé, and he created a circuit based on the ATP, the tennis professional circuit, with points, ranking, tournaments everywhere. So, and then that's how that's how the circuit grew. It's he organized a fun, well organized circuit of tournaments where all the good players were coming, and it was a fun place to be. The parties were awesome all the time. So that's how it started, because of necessity, and then we grew from there. Since the FQ created that, the number of team has just went up and up every year. It's crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like a burgeoning scene there. I know some friends from Ontario. John Hallett, big shout out. He's never gotten a shout out before, so I'll give him one now. So John Hallett, I know he played in the Quebec circuit at some point. He would travel from like Kitchener, Ontario, and drive over to play. So it was a pretty popular thing. And does it end with like a finals or like a final tournament? Like, what is there like a rankings? How does that work for that?
Yeah, there's a ranking. So it has changed in the past, but there's 3 format of tournaments. There's the 1,000 points tournament, the 666, and the 333 tournaments. So the first team gets 1,000 points, second team gets 990, I think, and it drops down. So all the teams gets points, and then the top 32 plays in the final tournament, which is now the Mars Attack, and it's 1 versus 32, and you try to make your way to the final spot. The level of play has gone up. It's crazy. Like Ninjax used to win all the tournaments before because the level of play wasn't there. Now they're pushing us. It's really hard. We're not winning anymore. There's some really great team that developed some other skills, like the hub the line, and the troubles are getting crazy. Like Gavin was saying that the scoobers are getting crazy indoor. You can't guard them. You don't know where the disc is coming from all the time. So it's very interesting. And for Danie, I want to talk about that. We're 6 to 12 years old. We're playing juniors. It's perfect for the junior format because the field is so much smaller. They get the disc a lot more. So we play with a Dodge B for 6 to 9s, but for 9 to 12, the 4-on-4 format is, I think, the perfect format to learn for kids. So shout out to Elevate Ultimate.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
I'll take it. We do
Sorry, that
3-on-3, 4-on-4. Well, yeah, we try to do the small-sided stuff, but we don't treat it like it's its own entity. So that's probably somewhere where we could focus a little bit more on and yeah.
And I must say, it has created a great sense of community in Quebec. There's the 7-on-7 tournaments that you don't see everyone. The teams are bigger, so you hang out with your team. When the teams are 8 to 12 people, you go hang out with the other team more. You talk more to the other people. So there has been a lot of the exchange, and the growth in the community and the exchange, the communication has grown a lot in terms of governance. And so I really recommend that to host a small 4-on-4 tournament just for fun, just to hang out with the friends.
I'm sold.
Yeah, last question for you, Jean-Levy, with this. I heard that there are potentially some players that only play 4v4 in the circuit. Is that true that some of them don't play 7s like for club teams, but they just focus more on the 4s?
They focus. No, I think everyone plays all the format. They like it more. They tended to use it as their competitive season, but I think everyone's playing all kind of formats. But some teams, yes, are more serious about 4v4 than the 7 versus 7. So what's the real season? We don't know. For me, still outdoor. 4v4 is still fun, but I think everyone's participating in both circuit.
Okay, no, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. And we'll go over to we'll go East Coast here, it looks like. And we'll go Brunch Money. So first of all, sweet name. Love the name. That's number one. Because I know I was watching a finals earlier, and there was a team called Nova Scotia 1. So you guys have really grown in your creativity, Gavin. I believe you're probably on that team maybe or associated. So you've really grown in your creativity from Nova Scotia 1 and Nova Scotia 2 to now Brunch Money. So can you talk a little bit about how Brunch Money came about? And was it like just a group of friends, or are you taking the best players from the province or from the city? What does that look like?
Sure. Yeah. So those first few years where it was like NS1, NS2, it was more, we kind of were going with a provincial model kind of idea to try and get people behind it a little more. But the team was still like, even though it was brunch money eventually, it was still brunch money back then in a way. And it actually evolved from our league team and our C4P teams called lunch money. So brunch money was the C4UC, like sister or brother, whatever you want to call it. So the first few, like every year we were allowed to basically pick our own team and pick our own roster. And the first year it was kind of application process. So I got to pick the first team, I guess is how it worked. And then after that, it was kind of, years after that, it was just kind of free for all and you kind of form your own team and there'd be a qualification tournament. So for our teams, I was always just trying to find the best players, the best people that I wanted for the team. So it wasn't always necessarily the best players, but the best people I love playing with that played the game right and that played as a team, especially where it's mixed play. You can't just pick everybody. They have to play mixed very well. And so I was always trying to find the best people that fit that and fill certain roles on the team that was very balanced. And luckily, it just worked out that a lot of them were my friends. It's a small community. And people I've been playing with for years. So there was a lot of baked in chemistry that really helped us early on. And then the roster has fluctuated every year because there's always, I don't think there was ever a year where an injury didn't take away a player, self included the first year, which I actually coached instead of playing. But we've always just managed to find other great players within the Nova Scotia and just fill in the roster and just keep rolling and always doing really well. Yeah.
And Gavin, you mentioned a little bit about focusing on people that can play mixed. And I know you had mentioned earlier in your description of 4v4, so thank you for that it was become 2-2 ratio, but that wasn't always the case. But as we were talking about this in preparing for this panel, you had mentioned that Brunch Money was taking a specific initiative in making sure that was happening. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, Brunch Money pretty much always played 2-2. That was when we had the choice. So we couldn't control what the other team could do, but every chance that we could control the ratio, it was always 2-2. And we'd even start every game just telling the other team, like, look, when we're on offense, it's 2-2. Like, you don't even have to ask the question. It's going to be 2-2 all day. And that's just, first off, is because how we've always played. We've always played 2-2 here in Nova Scotia. So it was normal. It was easy for us. And without even getting into it, that's kind of the right thing to do, in our opinion. And it was never a debate for our team. It was just, this is how we're going to play. And win, lose, whatever. This is how we're going to play. We're going to play 2-2. And that even translated into how we ran Anchor, which is just Brunch Money kind of helped create Anchor in a way, because we saw how well Brunch Money could do against some of the top players when we played mixed and we brought all our best players together. And then that created the idea of, well, we can do this with Anchor as well. So we brought that along as well. We played more. We always picked a higher ratio for our women when we played, when you could still decide in mixed as well. So it was just always just something that was baked into our teams, and it wasn't up for debate ever. It was just, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, that was something that stuck out to me in preparing. Gavin, just hearing you talk about that, and that's really cool that's, what your team decided to do. Because obviously if it's mixed ultimate, it should be like, especially because it's even numbers, it should be 2-2. So kind of a no-brainer now when we think about it, but obviously things were not like that always. So thank you for sharing that. And Sarah, now I got some questions for you. As Danie mentioned, you're the furthest team basically out west that attends like these major tournaments like the C4UC. So how are you able to get ready for the tournament as a team when there might not be other competitive teams participating in the circuit?
Yeah, so we're so far have been the only Alberta team that's gone out to C4UC, but we do have we call it the Prairie Summit Series. It's a set of 3 tournaments that we play in Alberta. They alternate between Edmonton and Calgary, the tournaments. And so that's kind of where you get to see a lot of those competitive people. Sometimes they throw together just a mishmash team, and sometimes it's a team that plays together for the entire series. But we do get to play 3 pretty big and competitive tournaments in Alberta, and it's really awesome because unfortunately the last C4UC in 2020 was canceled, but there's actually going to be 2 Alberta teams coming out that time. So it is becoming more popular, and people are getting a little bit more into the competitive side of it and wanting to take it to the highest level. So it was unfortunate, obviously, because of COVID that had to be canceled. But I think hopefully going forward, that's going to be a trend that continues going upwards, that we keep on getting those other teams from out west heading over to out east for C4UC, wherever that tournament may be.
Yeah, they always seem to happen out in either Ontario or Quebec, right? So maybe that will change. We don't know. But in terms of the distance even, has that been a challenge in recruiting players at all? Like for your team, are you able to get the best players that, first of all, have the means to travel or even desire to travel out far away in the winter, especially to play some indoor ultimate there?
Yeah, so again, out here, pretty much to play ultimate competitively at any level, it's going to take a plane ride or a long drive, regardless of whether it's winter or summer. So it's not really much different for us with C4UC. In the summertime, obviously, there's a few other teams in Alberta that you can play against, but to get a big variety of competition, you're just going to have to travel regardless. So I think most of the competitive players in and around Alberta are ready to kind of take on that traveling burden. And there's been lots and lots of help from different sources and stuff like that. Back when I was a student, there was some teammates who chipped in to help fly for flights out to Quebec and stuff like that. So everybody's pretty committed to it, which is awesome. And overall, I think everybody just wants everybody to have the best possible experience. So we make it happen however we can.
For sure. And I'll give you one quick last question. You mentioned your second Alberta team there. Was that a team associated with your team at all? Was that kind of like a B team, or is it completely a separate entity there, or what's the growth like with that?
Yeah, so they're basically a completely separate team from us, apart from the fact that so NOMO is a mixture of Edmonton and Calgary players. So we have some players from the competitive teams in Edmonton and some players from the competitive teams down in Calgary. So in the wintertime, we're basically playing against teammates that we normally have in the summertime. So they aren't associated with NOMO in terms of NOMO, but half of them are teammates that we play with in the summer. So again, it's a pretty small community, but people are getting a little bit more and more into the competitive side of 4-on-4. And like I say, hopefully that just continues to increase as we move forward.
Yeah, no, that's sweet. And last but not least, Steph, out in my parts of Ontario. And so, yeah, you've done well with Melt, knowing that it's mostly players from like Hamilton area or kind of like smaller city. You're not taking players from Toronto or Ottawa or London or wherever. So what do you think has led to the success of Melt, especially as you said, your first kick at the can, you make C4UC, you make some noise, right? You beat Toon Squad. So that's like pretty cool deal, right? And so how did that all come about?
Yeah, Melt was, formed more or less from a bunch of friends, which it sounds like that's not dissimilar from the others in the room here. Just kind of wanting to play together. I actually think it was one of our friends on PPF who said, hey, we should really consider putting a 4v4 team together. And that's kind of how it started. And so like Molly, Link, and I met and pulled a list of not just competitive people or the best of the best, but it's like who are our friends that we want to play with? What are some personalities that are going to match well? And the core of us really is Hamilton, but we do have some people that are maybe in Cambridge and maybe a few in Toronto. So we don't always get that chemistry of, say, league night where we do try to practice and kind of get that chemistry going. So we're trying to, work on that for future seasons is getting in league night to practice and continue to succeed. I think what's led to Melt's success is really just the right mix of people and drive to be competitive, but we also want to have fun. We don't really have placement goals. It's something that we don't necessarily shoot for. I like to think we don't take ourselves too seriously. We've got fun names and fun jerseys, and all of our even plays are like things that melt. So just, have a good time when we're out on the field. So yeah.
Name one play that you have that is a thing that melts, please.
Popsicle. Popsicle is our vert stack. Yeah.
Hey,
that makes sense.
Kind of makes sense.
It's funny. And so you mentioned the practicing thing.
So are you then not going to have players from other cities? Are you going to keep it more Hamilton based, or what are you thinking with that? Or maybe you don't know.
TBD, just because of the future of Ultimate, but we're trying to get that cohesion. We found that we were more successful in 2019 just because we did have more players that were able to attend practice and go over the plays and learn everyone's quirks of where they are most comfortable and what they're going to do next. And you just get to that point where you know where someone's going to be on the field, that it's just second nature. So certainly something that we would be looking for to just keep that kind of cohesion across the team.
Yeah, that sounds good. I know one of my buds, Josh Bowen, plays on the team. So no, you guys have done well. Like the team has done well, and I'm a fan, right, Danie? I think you're a fan of all these teams now. Maybe you'll get their jersey or something after, or something like that.
I think I'm accepting applications for me to fly out to be on one of your teams, please.
There you go.
Actually, depends on who has sicker jerseys, honestly.
There you go. Well, we got some jersey flexes over there. It's great. So, Dane, do you have any other questions for the panel there before we wrap things up?
I mean, I don't have any questions per se. I just want to say I'm really grateful to have all of your time and energy kind of explaining to not only me, but everybody across our great nation, whether they are complete noobs to 4-on-4 or they're passionately obsessed with it like you four are. You've converted me. So I just want to thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming in there, the panel. And so right now we're going to move to our Beaver Tales segment. So Sarah Norton is actually going to be part of that. So you can stay tuned for that after the break and we play our Beaver Tales song. So thank you again for coming in on the panel. And we'll join the rest of you in the audience for our Beaver Tales segment.
All beavers unite.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our episode 3 Beaver Tale. Right now, we have Sarah Norton, who you heard from in the actual episode. We're super excited to have you, Sarah, and for you to tell us your awesome story. You can tell everybody again quickly where you're from, your team experience, anything like that. It can be really short because it's just kind of a recap.
Okay, so I'm Sarah Norton. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, and I play with the Fleury women's competitive team.
Sweet. I've played against you. I remember playing against Fleury and I was like, who is this person? Because you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. You're just like every othering, skying people, like just...
Let's go.
Yeah, very cool to watch you play and to play against you and to see you play on the national stage. So... Theo, do you have anything to say before we just let Sarah run with it?
Yeah, well, Sarah, congratulations. You've won a pair of B socks with the Huckin Eh logo on them. So let's go. If you want to be like Sarah and get featured on the podcast, you can submit your own Beaver Tales story. You can find it on our Instagram, Hucking_A. The link is in the bio, as well as on Facebook, Huckin Eh Podcast. Or if you just want to send us a story by email, you can email us at huckinga@ultiworld.com. And then you could be like Sarah, be better than ever, and get some free socks. So why not, right? So Sarah, why don't you share your Beaver Tales story now?
Sure. So I started playing Ultimate when I was in university. And I was just coming off playing a bunch of other sports in high school. And it was just on a rec team. And my only transferable skill when it came to Frisbee was being able to run. So like disc in my hands was pathetic, but just run to the end zone. And that was the game plan for me for a very long time. And that actually stuck with me all the way through my first couple of years playing on my competitive women's team in Edmonton. And my motto basically became, you don't have to throw the disc if you catch it in the end zone. So that was like my goal. And so that worked out pretty well for me. My coaches and my captains were always just like, Sarah, if you get the disc, look for your handler. Just don't do anything fancy. Find the reset. And that was good with me. And then a couple years into my Ultimate Frisbee career, I find myself playing on the U24 Women's Team Canada team. And we were heading for Australia. So again, my skill set was still pretty limited at this point. And fortunately for me, I was a D-line player. So I spent a couple of training camps working really hard with the D-line, we were clicking really well. And then when we got to Australia in our very first game, 2 of our O-line cutters got injured. So
Oh no.
little D-line me without many disc skills gets pushed up to the O-line. And so things went pretty well for the first few games. We were starting to gel as a team and everything was going really well. And then we get to our first live streamed game and we're against the Australian women's team. And so they've got a whole crowd of supporters there with them and we're being live streamed. So the nerves were a little bit higher at that point. And a couple points into the game, I catch the disc and I go for my backhand reset to my handler and I get hand blocked. And
Oh, no.
you could hear the crowd go crazy on the sidelines. All the Australians were so hyped about it. And my confidence was just shattered. So fortunately for me, I got tossed out onto the field for another point a couple points later. And I catch the disc again, not in the end zone, which again is not my specialty. And I'm being forced flick on the away sideline. And the same girl is defending me. So I'm just like,
Uh-oh.
we're not going for the backhand here. That was too embarrassing. And I'm only about 10 yards out of the end zone, and I see Anushka Beaudry just booking it up the line. And she's got about 10 yards on her girl. So I'm like, all right, Sarah, you're about to throw a flick. And it's going to happen on live television, so please don't mess this up. And you can see it on the camera. I see it, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not about to throw this. And then I was like, all right, we're going to throw it. And it made it to the end zone. Anushka had to lay out for it, but she caught it. And it was my first assist at Worlds, and it was my proudest moment. So my moral of the story, I guess, is always be practicing your throws and make sure you have teammates who will lay out in the end zone for you.
I adore that story. I do have a quick question because this has come up in my coaching life and actually my playing life. But like as a player, when you make a mistake, what message does that send to you when your coaches put you back out pretty much right away?
I mean, I think at the time it was a bit of a short bench that got me back out on the field, but it was also that it's awesome. I always love the opportunity to get out there and just give it a go again, right? Just to kind of get that chance to redeem yourself. I think no matter in what sport I've played, it's always been about like that next play and trying to get it back because you never really want to leave it on that sour note. So it definitely boosted my confidence. And I did have 1 or 2 more assists in the tournament after that. So it definitely helped me for the next few games as well. So yeah, it was awesome. And our coaches were great. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And did like your parents, or were they watching like back home? Like were people just like tweeting at you, sending messages like, did you see that throw? Let's go. Like that kind of stuff?
My parents were actually in Australia, so they saw it, but my uncle messaged me afterwards and he was like, I think you celebrated more for that throw than you did for any of the goals that you caught in the end zone. And I was like, that is definitely the truth. It was a very proud moment for me. So shout out to Anushka for making it happen.
She's a pretty good target. So if you're going to be like overthrowing anyone, that's the person.
She's got the length for it, that's for sure. So it definitely helped out.
Yeah. Do you have, you had like, there's not a lot of higher level opportunities at Edmonton. Like you have like one women's team. It's not like you have another team super close to play against. Like, do you have any advice for other players that are not that Edmonton's rural, but there are players that are kind of more isolated from other competition? Do you have any advice for like keeping your game up at a high level?
Yeah, I think some of the most important things are just taking the opportunities that you get, right? There's no bad opportunities really if you're out there and playing and practicing. I spent 2 winters ago, I guess, since COVID, I played in the men's competitive league for indoor for 4-on-4. Just find that competition wherever you can and make it happen because there's no bad experience. So just get out there and make sure you're pushing yourself always and just find ways to get it done.
I wish I could record that and like play that in all of my juniors' headsets, like as they're warming up or like doing a practice, like, oh, this drill again? Yes. This drill again.
Never too much.
Yeah.
And Sarah, was that the Premier League that like happens in Alberta? Is that right? I was talking to Mr. Dave Hochhalter and he was showing me actually the spreadsheet. He's showed me like a huge spreadsheet. There's like it's like a bunch of fantasy stats. You can compare like your winning percentage based on if you play with someone or if you play against them. Like it's this whole thing, right?
they go pretty wild for it here. So they have a few team managers who are also players, and they draft players at the beginning of the season. And then you always have stats being kept on the sidelines during the game. And so there's mid-season trades and stuff like that happening. So if you haven't been checking your messages, you can show up one night for league and they'll be like, "Oh no, you're on that team over there now." And so it's fun. It's a really fun way to kind of keep people really invested, and just a high level of competitive ultimate here. Find ways to get it done, like I say, whatever way we can.
That's so sweet. So thanks, Sarah, so much for joining us. It was awesome hearing your story and hearing a little bit more about your background training at Edmonton and all the things that you do. It's very inspirational to, I think, a lot of people. So really appreciate it. You're going to look super fly in your bee socks. And yeah, let's hear that outro song.
Oh, Beaver party tonight.
Thanks everyone for tuning in for our third episode of Huckin Eh podcast. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. It's super exciting. So tune in next week. We're going to be doing an episode all about the wacky, wonderful world of jersey trading. It's so bizarre. If you've seen a jersey trading situation happen, it is like a microcosm of like a city, of a marketplace. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from, we have two guests coming on that they're going to talk about it. One from a more juniors perspective and one that's done a few Worlds tournaments. And so that's pretty exciting stuff. So definitely tune in next week. For sure, we got to plug our socials, right? So you got to follow us at Hucking_A, both on Instagram and Twitter. Hucking A Podcast on Facebook. Email huckinga@ultiworld.com. And of course, YouTube. We're trying to get those YouTube views up, right? We sound like YouTubers now. So like, comment, smash the like button, subscribe to Ultiworld, all those good things. And then right now, stick around if you're a subscriber to Ultiworld, which you should be, right, Danie? Because it's like, what, $3.99 USD, which is what in Canadian?
$15, $16, $100. I don't know. I can't remember what the conversion rate right now is, but it's around $6. Get out your credit card and do it. It's good content.
Yeah, I like the accent. I'm not sure if that's
Thank
a
you.
Boston accent, but I do like it.
I don't know either.
It's
I'm
good
trying to be
stuff.
American. That's probably wrong.
I don't think they want to be portrayed that way. But anywho.
Oh, that's sick. Okay. Yeah, that's fair though.
Stick around for the subscriber only segment with Sarah Norton. We do a deep dive. We do some hot seat questions. And then she challenges me on the real or fake team name challenge. So that's pretty exciting. So stick around for that if you're a subscriber. If not, you should subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, this is Shanique Crawford, founder and CEO of Discover Diversity, and you're listening to the Huckin Eh podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.